September 14th, 1942, 4:47 a.m., Rue de la Bibliothèque, Lyon, France. The pre-dawn air hangs heavy with the scent of rain-soaked cobblestones and the acrid tang of coal smoke drifting from nearby chimneys. Hélène Beaumont's fingers tremble, not from the cold seeping through the library's stone walls, but from the weight of the blank identity card she holds beneath the amber glow of her desk lamp. The card is no larger than her palm, yet it feels as heavy as the mahogany shelves surrounding her, each laden with 10,000 volumes that have witnessed centuries of human triumph and tragedy. She is 43 years old, unmarried, unremarkable in appearance, the kind of woman who might pass you on the street without drawing a second glance. Her brown hair, streaked with premature gray, is pulled into a practical bun. Wire-rimmed spectacles perch on her narrow nose. Her dress is navy wool, mended at the elbows, appropriate for a woman of modest means who has served as head librarian of the Bibliothèque Municipale de Lyon for 14 years. Everything about her speaks of order, of quiet competence, of a life lived between pages and card catalogs. But tonight, Hélène Beaumont is committing treason. The identity card before her bears the official seal of the Vichy government, a francisque, the double-headed axe that has replaced the Republican symbols she grew up honoring. She obtained the blank from her cousin Mark, who works in the prefecture, who slipped it from a drawer when his supervisor stepped out for a cigarette. Mark doesn't know what she needs it for. It's better that way. The less anyone knows, the safer they remain. Outside, Lyon sleeps fitfully under occupation. German patrols move through the streets at irregular intervals, their boots striking the pavement in rhythms designed to be unpredictable, to keep the population off balance, afraid. The milice, French collaborators more zealous than their German masters, maintain their own networks of informants and enforcers. Trust has become the scarcest commodity in France, more precious than bread, more dangerous than explosives. Hélène dips her pen in the inkwell, standard administrative blue, the same she's used for years to catalog acquisitions and record loans. Her handwriting must be perfect. One irregular letter, one moment of hesitation that leaves the ink pooled or scratched, and the document becomes suspect. She has practiced for hours on scrap paper, copying the exact script used by the clerks at the prefecture, studying genuine documents until she can replicate every flourish and peculiarity. The name she writes is Marie Dubois, common, unmemorable, the kind of name that exists 1,000 times over in French administrative records. Birth date, March 3, 1937. That makes the child 5 years old, young enough that discrepancies in personal history can be attributed to a child's poor memory, old enough to follow instructions, to understand when she must lie. Because the real child, the one who will carry this card, is not named Marie Dubois. Her name is Sarah Goldstein. She is 5 years and 7 months old. She has dark curls that her mother braids each morning, brown eyes that still hold traces of the carefree joy that characterized her first years of life, before the yellow stars, before the raids, before her father disappeared into the night after a Gestapo sweep of the Quai de la Pêcherie. Sarah's mother, Rebecca Goldstein, came to the library 3 days ago. Hélène remembers the moment with crystalline clarity. 2:37 p.m., according to the clock above the circulation desk. Rebecca had entered with careful steps, her eyes scanning the room with the wariness of a hunted animal. She wore her coat despite the warmth of early September, the yellow star sewn onto her breast with meticulous stitches. Rebecca had been a seamstress before the laws forbade Jews from working in most professions. Rebecca had approached the desk with a book in hand, Madame Bovary, a choice that struck Hélène as both random and oddly fitting. The tragedy of a woman trapped by circumstance, seeking escape through fantasy. Rebecca's hands shook as she placed the book on the counter. "I need to return this," Rebecca had said, her voice barely above a whisper. Hélène had taken the book, opened it to check for damage, as was her habit, and found the note folded between pages 47 and 48. "They are coming for the children. I have heard the roundups will begin within days. Please, I have nowhere else to turn. Your name was given to me by Father Dubois. He said you might help. I will do anything. Father Dubois." the parish priest at Saint-Nizier, part of the network. Hélène had known of his work, the refugees hidden in the church basement, the escape routes he facilitated toward the Swiss border, but she had never expected to be drawn directly into such operations. She was a librarian, not a resistance fighter. She had no training in espionage or forgery. Her weapon was the Dewey Decimal System, her battlefield, the silent halls where knowledge slept in leather bindings. But she had looked at Rebecca Goldstein's face, at the desperate hope warring with absolute terror, and she had given the smallest nod, a gesture so minute it might have been mistaken for a natural twitch. Yet Rebecca had seen it, understood it, and the relief that washed over her features was almost more painful to witness than the fear. Now, 3 days later, Hélène completes the false identity card with practiced strokes. Place of birth, Bordeaux. Far enough from Lyon that records would be difficult to verify, large enough that thousands of births occur there annually. Father, Jean Dubois, deceased 1940. Mother, Colette Dubois, née Martin, deceased 1941. Orphaned. This is the key. An orphan has no parents who might be interrogated, no family members who might accidentally reveal inconsistencies in the fabricated history. Current guardian, Hélène Beaumont, maternal aunt. Residence, 14 Rue de la Bibliothèque, Lyon. She sets down the pen and examines her work. The ink glistens wetly in the lamplight. Perfect. Indistinguishable from a genuine document. She has compared it against her own identity card, against marks, against every example she could study. Unless subjected to intensive scrutiny by an expert, unless someone has reason to look closely, it will pass. But it's not enough. The identity card is merely the foundation. She needs supporting documents, a baptismal certificate, school enrollment records, a ration card, a medical history. Each piece must corroborate the others, must weave together into a seamless fiction that can withstand casual investigation. Hélène rises from her desk and moves through the darkened library with the confidence of intimate familiarity. She doesn't need light to navigate these stacks. She has walked these aisles 10,000 times, has reached for volumes in the darkness of winter mornings before the sun rises, has locked the doors late at night after losing herself in research. The library is more home to her than the small apartment above, where she sleeps alone and eats simple meals and maintains the fiction of a spinster librarian's modest existence. She passes the literature section, Dumas, Flaubert, Zola, and enters the administrative archives housed in the library's east wing. Here, the city stores its duplicate records, birth certificates, property deeds, census data. The originals reside at the prefecture, but copies have been deposited in the library for preservation and public access. It's a system that dates back to the Revolution, when the new republic sought to make governmental operations more transparent, more accessible to citizens. That system, designed to protect the people from tyranny, has become a tool for tyranny itself. But it can also be weaponized against the regime. Hélène unlocks a filing cabinet. Her master key grants her access to every locked door and drawer in the building, and removes a blank baptismal certificate from the Church of Saint-Jean. She acquired these months ago during a cataloging project at the church archives. Father Dubois had given her access to the storage rooms, and she had carefully tucked several blank forms into her bag, telling herself even then that she might need them, though she hadn't yet admitted why. The certificate must be dated April 15, 1937, 6 weeks after Marie Dubois' supposed birth date. She uses a different pen for this, one with slightly browner ink to simulate aging. The signature she forges is that of Father Bernard, who actually did serve at Saint-Jean, but died in 1940, another convenient impossibility of verification. As she works, her mind drifts to the girl who will become Marie Dubois. Sarah Goldstein. What will it be like for her to lose her name? To be told that she must forget her parents, her history, everything that makes her who she is. Children are resilient, people say. They adapt. But is such adaptation a blessing or a curse? To survive by forgetting? Is that truly survival, or merely a different kind of death? Hélène shakes the thought away. Sentiment is a luxury she cannot afford. Sarah Goldstein will live. That is what matters. She will grow up, will perhaps marry and have children of her own, will walk through the world as Marie Dubois and never know she was meant to die in a cattle car bound for some unimaginable horror in the East. The rumors that filter back from Poland and Germany speak of camps, of systematic murder, of industrialized death on a scale that defies comprehension. Hélène doesn't know if she believes these rumors. The human mind resists such absolute evil. But she knows enough to understand that Jewish children are being taken, and they are not coming back. The clock above the archives strikes 5. Dawn approaches. She must finish soon. The library opens at 8, and she needs time to hide the evidence of her night's work, to restore her appearance to that of the respectable, predictable Mademoiselle Beaumont, who arrives each morning at precisely 7:45, who greets the janitor with a polite nod, who settles behind her desk with a cup of weak coffee and begins the day's work of stamping cards and shelving returns. She completes the baptismal certificate and moves on to the school enrollment form. This one is trickier. It must reference a school in Bordeaux, and while she has studied the city's educational system using census records and municipal directories, she cannot be certain of every detail. She chooses École Primaire Sainte-Marie, a Catholic school in the city's 3rd arrondissement. If anyone checks, they will find that such a school exists. If they dig deeper, seeking specific records, she can only hope that the chaos of war, the displaced populations, the burned buildings, the overwhelmed bureaucracies, will provide sufficient cover for inconsistencies. The enrollment form shows that Marie Dubois attended Sainte-Marie from September 1942 until August 1942, when she relocated to Lyon following the death of her mother. Previous records were lost in a fire at the school's administrative building. Another convenient tragedy and plausible. Lyon itself has suffered several fires during British bombing raids targeting the nearby industrial facilities. By 6 a.m., Hélène has completed the full set of documents. She arranges them carefully in a manila folder, the kind used for library patron records. She labels it in her neat script, Dubois, Marie, Personnel Documents. She places this folder not in the archives, but in her own desk drawer beneath a stack of circulation reports. It must be accessible but not obvious, findable but not prominent. She burns the practice sheets in the small stove that heats her office, watching the paper curl and blacken, the false names and dates consumed by flame. She washes the ink from her pens, returns each to its proper place. She dusts the desk, adjusts the lamp, straightens the blotter. Every trace must be erased. When the janitor arrives at 7, there can be nothing to suggest that the office was occupied during the night. Finally, she descends to the library's basement, a warren of storage rooms and maintenance spaces that burrow deep into Lyon's ancient foundations. Here, where medieval stone gives way to Roman brick, she has created her hiding place. Behind a shelf of damaged books awaiting repair, she has loosened several stones in the wall, creating a cavity just large enough for a small box. In this box, she keeps her contraband, blank identity cards, stolen seals, forged signatures on practice sheets. Also, a list of names written in a code of her own devising, matching false identities to real children. If she is caught, this list would doom not only her, but dozens of families. Yet she cannot abandon it. Without the list, the children themselves might forget their true names, and after the war, if there is an after, families must be reunited. She adds Marie Dubois to the list, MD equals SG, Rue Mercière 8, 3rd floor. Sarah Goldstein's current address, where she lives with her mother in a 2-room apartment that used to house 3 families, but now shelters only them, the others having fled or been taken already. Hélène replaces the stones, slides the damaged books back into position, and returns upstairs. Her legs ache from the climb. She is not young, and the basement stairs are steep, but she moves with quiet determination. In the library's washroom, she examines her reflection in the spotted mirror. Her face is pale, drawn with fatigue. Dark circles shadow her eyes. She looks like what she is, a woman who has not slept. But this is not unusual. Mademoiselle Beaumont is known to work late, cataloging new acquisitions, organizing special collections. The staff has grown accustomed to finding her at the library before dawn, to seeing lights burning in her office long after closing. They think her dedicated, perhaps obsessive. They do not think her dangerous. She washes her face with cold water, pinches her cheeks to bring color to them, adjusts her hair. By 7:30, when the assistant librarian, Madame Rousseau, arrives with her customary gossip and complaints about rationing, Hélène is seated at the circulation desk, working through a stack of overdue notices with methodical efficiency. "Good morning, Mademoiselle Beaumont," Madame Rousseau calls, unwinding her scarf. "Cold this morning. I think we'll have an early winter." "Good morning, Madame Rousseau," Hélène replies, not looking up from her work. "I wouldn't be surprised." The almanac predicts frost by October. Dreadful. As if we don't have enough to worry about with the food situation. My daughter tells me there's talk of reducing the bread ration again. Unfortunate, but necessary, I suppose. The banal exchange, the performance of normalcy. This is how survival looks in occupied France. Pleasant conversations about weather and rations while the world burns. At 8 a.m., Hélène unlocks the library's front doors. The first patrons trickle in, students from the nearby lycée, old men seeking newspapers, housewives browsing the popular novels. The day unfolds in its usual rhythm. Books checked out and returned, questions answered, silence enforced. Hélène moves through her duties with practiced calm, betraying nothing of the night's work. At 11:15 a.m., Rebecca Goldstein enters the library. She wears the same coat, the yellow star stark against the dark fabric. She carries no books today. She approaches the desk with the same careful steps, the same frightened wariness. But when her eyes meet Hélène's, there's a question there, desperate and raw. Hélène gives the smallest nod. Rebecca's eyes close briefly. Her lips move, a prayer perhaps, or simply an exhalation of relief too profound for words. "I'm looking for books about the countryside," Rebecca says, her voice steady despite the trembling of her hands. "My daughter enjoys stories about farms, animals, something educational." "Of course," Hélène replies. "Follow me." We have an excellent selection in the children's section. She leads Rebecca deep into the stacks, to the far corner where the children's books are shelved, where no one can overhear them without being seen approaching. She pulls a volume from the shelf, Les Animaux de la Ferme, and opens it, pretending to show Rebecca the contents. "Tomorrow," Hélène whispers, her eyes on the pages. 11 p.m. Come to the service entrance in the alley behind the library. Bring your daughter. Bring nothing else. No photographs, no documents with her real name, nothing that connects her to her past. She must come as she is, only the clothes she wears. "Her favorite doll," Rebecca begins, then stops. "No, of course, nothing. I have documents prepared. I am officially her aunt, her guardian. She is an orphan named Marie Dubois. You must teach her this name, this story. She must believe it completely. Children cannot keep secrets if they don't understand their secrets. She's 5 years old. Old enough to learn. Old enough to survive." Hélène closes the book, hands it to Rebecca. "Check this out. Return it next week, when everything is settled." Rebecca takes the book with trembling hands. "I don't know how to thank you." "Don't." Hélène's voice is sharp, almost harsh. "Don't thank me. Don't tell anyone. Don't come back here except as a patron borrowing books. If anything goes wrong, if you're questioned, if you're taken, you don't know me. You found someone else, someone whose name you don't remember. Do you understand? Yes. Your daughter will be safe. I promise you that much. It's a promise she has no right to make, no guarantee she can offer. But Rebecca needs to hear it, needs something to hold on to in the hours ahead when she must prepare her daughter for separation, must teach a 5-year-old to forget her own name." They return to the circulation desk. Hélène stamps the book, October 14th, the return date, and watches Rebecca Goldstein walk out of the library, the yellow star marking her for death with every step she takes on the sunlit street. The rest of the day passes in a fog of anxiety. Hélène makes mistakes, rare for her, miscataloguing a new acquisition, giving the wrong change to a patron. At 3:30 p.m., 2 German soldiers enter the library. They browse the periodicals, speaking in low German that Hélène pretends not to understand, though she studied the language at university 20 years ago. They seem to be simply killing time, waiting for something, but their presence makes her skin crawl with paranoia. Does someone suspect? Has she been betrayed? Is this the moment before the arrest? But the soldiers eventually leave, tipping their caps politely, and the afternoon wears into evening without incident. Hélène closes the library at 6 p.m. as usual. She completes the day's paperwork, reconciles the cash drawer, shelves the returns. Madame Rousseau departs at 6:30, calling goodbye, complaining again about the weather. The janitor finishes his rounds by 7 and leaves through the back door, locking it behind him with a key Hélène will need to unlock later. She is alone. The hours until 11 p.m. stretch endlessly. She tries to read, loses herself, if only briefly, in the familiar comfort of a novel. But the words swim before her eyes. She makes herself eat something, bread and cheese from her small apartment upstairs, though the food tastes like sawdust. She paces the library's aisles, straightening already straight shelves, adjusting the angles of chairs in the reading room. At 10:30 p.m., she descends to the basement and retrieves the folder containing Marie Dubois' documents. She also brings up a small suitcase she has prepared over the past weeks. Children's clothes in neutral colors, a warm coat, spare shoes, toiletries, 2 blank notebooks, pencils. The accumulation of a child's life, gathered piece by piece from second-hand shops and donations, each item carefully chosen to be unremarkable, forgettable. At 10:50 p.m., she unlocks the service entrance and steps into the alley. The night is cold, overcast, moonless, perfect. She can barely see her own hands before her face. She listens. Distant traffic on the Rue de la République, the hum of German vehicles on their endless patrols, the yowl of a cat somewhere in the darkness. Nothing nearby. No footsteps. No watchers. At 10:58 p.m., a shadow detaches from the deeper shadows at the alley's mouth. 2 figures, one tall and one small. Rebecca Goldstein and her daughter approaching with the terrified caution of prey animals entering a trap. Hélène's breath catches. This is real. This is happening. There is no turning back. Rebecca wears dark clothes, the yellow star removed, itself a crime punishable by arrest. Sarah clings to her mother's hand, her eyes huge in the darkness. The child wears a simple dress, a cardigan, shoes that look too large for her small feet. Inside, quickly. Hélène ushers them through the door, closes it, locks it. The sound of the bolt sliding home seems impossibly loud. They stand in the dim corridor, lit by a single bulb. For a moment, no one speaks. Then, Rebecca drops to her knees before her daughter, takes the child's face in both hands. "Sarah," she whispers, "my darling, listen to me very carefully. You're going to stay with this nice lady for a while. She's going to take care of you." "Where are you going, Mama?" The child's voice is small, frightened. I have to go away for a little while. But you'll be safe here, you'll be safe. I want to come with you." "You can't, darling. You can't." Rebecca's voice breaks. She pulls her daughter close, holds her with desperate strength. "You have to be a very brave girl. You have to do exactly what Mademoiselle Beaumont tells you. Can you do that for me?" Sarah nods against her mother's shoulder, not understanding only that something terrible is happening. "Your name is Marie now," Rebecca continues, pulling back to look into her daughter's eyes. "Marie Dubois. Can you say that?" "Marie Dubois." The child's accent is wrong, too carefully pronounced, the name foreign in her mouth. "Good. Your name is Marie Dubois. Your mama and papa are in heaven. Mademoiselle Beaumont is your aunt. She's your family now. Do you understand? But you're my mama. No, darling. Rebecca's tears come now, silent and unstoppable. Not anymore. I was your mama, but now you have to forget me. Can you do that? Can you forget? This is too much. Hélène cannot watch this, yet she must. She must witness this breaking, must understand the full weight of what she's doing. This is not a simple rescue. This is the murder of a child's past, the surgical amputation of identity. Sarah Goldstein must die so that Marie Dubois can live. Rebecca stands, turns to Hélène. Take care of her. Please, she's everything. I will. If I survive, after the war, how will I find her? Don't think about that now. Survive first. When it's over, if it's ever over, come back to the library. I'll remember. Rebecca reaches into her pocket, withdraws a small object. A Star of David on a thin chain, silver, tarnished. This was my mother's. It's all I have of her. I want Sarah to... No. Hélène's refusal is harsh but necessary. She cannot have anything that marks her as Jewish. Nothing. You must understand that. Rebecca's hand closes around the necklace. Of course. I wasn't thinking. Go now. Before curfew patrols increase. Go. One final embrace. Rebecca holds her daughter, whispers things Hélène cannot hear, prayers or promises or simply a mother's love condensed into words that will have to last a lifetime. Then she pulls away, stands, moves to the door. She does not look back. If she looks back, she will not be able to leave. She steps into the alley and disappears into the darkness, and she is gone, and Sarah Goldstein begins to scream. The sound is piercing, terrified, the shriek of a child whose world has just ended. She runs to the door, pounds her small fists against it, crying for her mother in French and Yiddish, words tumbling over each other in panic. Hélène moves quickly. She scoops the child up. Sarah fights, thrashing, trying to bite, and carries her deeper into the library, away from the door, away from any window where the sound might escape into the street. In her office, she sets the child down and closes the door, muffling the screams. Hush, she says, but her voice is wrong, too stern, and the child only cries harder. She tries to embrace the girl, but Sarah pulls away, backing into a corner, her face wet with tears and mucus, her eyes wild with betrayal. I want my mama. Where's my mama? Your mama had to go away. The words sound hollow, cruel. She'll come back when it's safe. I want her now. Now. How do you comfort a child who has just lost everything? Hélène has no experience with children. She has lived alone her entire adult life, has never married, never mothered. She knows books, not people. She knows silence, not this raw animal grief. She does the only thing she can think of. She begins to read. She pulls a book from the shelf, Alice au Pays des Merveilles, a French translation, and she sits on the floor with her back against the desk, and she reads aloud, her voice steady and calm, narrating the story of a girl who falls through a rabbit hole into a world where nothing makes sense, where up is down and words mean their opposites and the very laws of nature are suspended. At first, Sarah doesn't listen. She cries and cries, her small body shaking with sobs. But gradually, exhausted by grief, she quiets. She doesn't approach Hélène, doesn't trust her, but she listens. The story becomes a lifeline, something to hold on to in the chaos. Hélène reads for an hour. Her voice grows hoarse. When she finishes the chapter, she starts again from the beginning. Repetition, routine, the comfort of familiar words. This is what children need, she thinks. This is what might save them both. At some point past midnight, Sarah's eyes close. She's still huddled in the corner, but sleep has claimed her, merciful and absolute. Hélène sets the book aside and watches the child sleep. So small, so fragile. A life balanced on the edge of a knife, dependent now on Hélène's ability to maintain a fiction. She cannot take the child upstairs to her apartment tonight. Too risky, too visible. If anyone saw her arriving home with a child, there would be questions. Instead, she makes a bed on the office floor using her coat as a blanket. She lifts Sarah carefully, settles her on the makeshift bed. The child doesn't wake. Hélène sits at her desk and watches over her through the remaining hours of darkness. This stranger who is now her responsibility, this Jewish child who must become French, Catholic, orphaned Marie Dubois. Dawn comes slowly, gray light seeping through the office window. Sarah wakes just after 6 a.m., disoriented and frightened, but the hysterical terror of the night before has subsided into quiet despair. She doesn't ask for her mother again. Some part of her understands, perhaps, that asking will not bring Rebecca back. "Are you hungry?" Hélène asks. The child nods. "Come with me. We'll go upstairs to my apartment. You'll have breakfast, and then we'll get you settled." She leads Sarah through the library, still closed, silent, and up the narrow stairs to her living quarters. The apartment is modest. A sitting room, a bedroom, a tiny kitchen, a bathroom. Everything is neat, ordered, reflecting the librarian's careful nature. There are no photographs on the walls, no personal mementos. Hélène has lived a life of studied anonymity. She makes porridge with the last of her oat ration, sweetens it with a precious spoonful of honey. Sarah eats mechanically, without appetite, but she eats. That's something. "Today," Hélène says, sitting across from her at the small table, "we're going to practice being Marie Dubois. Can you tell me your name?" Sarah, defiant. The child is testing her, perhaps hoping that the right answer will undo this nightmare. "No, darling. Your name is Marie. Marie Dubois. Try again. What's your name?" A long silence. Then, barely audible, "Marie." "Good. And where were you born?" "I don't know. Bordeaux." "You were born in Bordeaux. Say it." "Bordeaux. And who am I?" "I don't know." "I'm your Aunt Hélène. Your mama's sister. Your parents died in the war, and now you live with me. Do you understand?" "My mama didn't die. She was just here." "That was a different mama." "A dream, perhaps. Your real mama, Colette Dubois, died in 1941. I'm taking care of you now." The child's face crumples. "I don't want a different mama." "I know, sweetheart. I know." And Hélène does know, with a painful clarity that makes her throat tight. But sentiment cannot protect them. Only the fiction, perfectly maintained, can do that. But this is how we keep you safe. By pretending. By playing a game where you're Marie, and I'm your aunt, and we're a normal family. Can you play that game with me? Sarah doesn't answer, but she doesn't refuse either. And in that silence, Hélène finds a fragile hope. They spend the day in the apartment. Hélène calls down to Madame Rousseau, using the telephone installed in her office for library business, and explains that her young niece has arrived unexpectedly from Bordeaux, that there was a family emergency, that she'll be in later this afternoon to handle administrative matters, but will need to keep irregular hours for the next few weeks. Madame Rousseau's response is all sympathy and curiosity. "I didn't know you had family in Bordeaux? My late sister's child. Such a tragedy. I don't like to speak of it." Of course, of course. The poor dear. How old is she? 5. Very quiet. The trauma, you understand. Bring her by the library when you can. We should all meet her. This is inevitable. The child must be introduced, must become a known quantity in the neighborhood. But not yet, not until she's ready. Hélène spends the afternoon teaching Sarah her new identity. They review it again and again. Name, birthplace, parents' names, how they died, a bombing raid in Bordeaux, when she came to live with Aunt Hélène, just yesterday. The story must be simple enough for a 5-year-old to remember, but detailed enough to satisfy casual questions. Sarah is a quick study. Good. She parrots back the information with the same mechanical precision she used to eat breakfast. There's no life in it, no conviction, but that will come with time. Or it won't, and they'll all die in a Gestapo cell. That evening, Hélène brings out the suitcase of clothes. She has Sarah try on different outfits, assessing what fits, what needs alteration. The child's own dress, the one she wore from her mother's apartment, must be destroyed. It's worn but well made, the work of a skilled seamstress, possibly recognizable. Hélène burns it in the stove, watching the fabric blacken and curl, another piece of Sarah Goldstein consumed by flame. Over the following days, a routine emerges. Sarah sleeps in Hélène's bedroom. Hélène herself takes the sofa in the sitting room. Each morning, they practice the identity, drilling it like vocabulary lessons. What's your name? Where were you born? Who am I? The child's answers become smoother, more automatic. The lies begin to sound like truth. Hélène introduces Sarah to Madame Rousseau on the third day. The assistant librarian coos over the child, comments on how much she resembles Hélène. She doesn't, not at all, but people see what they expect to see. Such beautiful dark hair, Madame Rousseau says. Mediterranean blood in the family? Possibly, Hélène replies vaguely. My grandmother on my father's side was from the south. The lie comes easily now. Each repetition strengthens the fiction, layers it with false history, makes it real through sheer insistence. On the fifth day, Father Dubois visits the library. He comes during the quiet hours after lunch when few patrons are present. He makes a show of browsing the religious texts, then approaches the desk with a question about Thomas Aquinas that leads Hélène to invite him to her office to consult reference materials. Inside, with the door closed, he speaks quickly and quietly. I heard about the child. Rebecca. Gone. I don't know where. She didn't say. Probably for the best. He pauses, studying Hélène with eyes that have seen too much suffering. You're taking a terrible risk. I know. I can move the child if you'd prefer. I have contacts in the countryside, farming families who... No, she stays with me. I've already created the documentation. To move her now would raise questions. Father Dubois nods slowly. I have others, he says. Other children. 5 families came to me this week. The rumors are true. They're planning massive roundups throughout the city. They're going to take everyone, women, children, the elderly, transport them to Drancy, and from there, east. I don't have the resources to forge documents for all of them. I can hide a few in the church, but... He doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't need to. Hélène understands what he's asking. How many? She hears herself say. 20 children, maybe more. I can't take 20 children into my apartment, Father. It's impossible. Not you personally, but documents, false papers, identity cards, baptismal certificates, the things you created for the Goldstein girl. If I can get the children placed with families, with institutions, they need papers to survive inspection. 20 children. 20 identity cards, 20 complete histories, 20 carefully constructed lies. The scope of it overwhelms her.